And welcome to the Gracie Gatto podcast. I'm Gracie Gatto, and today's guest, please introduce yourself to our listeners.
I'm Jason Gerhard, currently running for sheriff of Merrimack County, which encompasses Concord, and I was a state rep for Northfield and Franklin from 22 to 24.
Okay, so what made you run for sheriff of I mean, it would be kind of cool if you were like sheriff of Rockingham, right? That's almost like sheriff of Nottingham. You know, in a
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, you could say that. Well, Concord being the state capital and Merrimack County has Concord in it, I tend to think this would be the key county to kind of bring back under the oversight of the grand jury, which is something I've been working on. The county grand jury, we spoke about this off air, but the county grand jury has the authority to investigate whatever they want, even though the county attorney at this time is not informing them of that right. I actually found a manual at the state library, which is the oldest state library in the country. It was founded in 1719 with 2 law books in Portsmouth. But this manual explicitly says they have the ability to investigate whatever they want, which I think is critical at this point where we have so many scandals rocking the state. There's just always something funky going on, and it's costing people a lot of money.
You have a real bone to pick with the prison system in New Hampshire. Can you tell me about it?
Was trying as a state rep to investigate the state prison just to see what was going on. I received some complaints from employees and also inmates, and I wanted to do a tour. I wanted to see what was going on there, and the director, Hanks, told me basically that I had to be attached at her hip to do an inspection because of my prior criminal history. I'm a federal felon. And
No,
yeah,
come on,
it's for
fill in
income
the
tax
audience.
stuff.
Fill in
It's
the
for income
audience.
tax stuff, yeah. So I helped an elderly couple. They were 65 at the time in a 10-month standoff with the federal government over the tax on federal income. And if you don't have any federal income, you don't owe the tax on federal income, which is a whole nother conversation maybe for another day. But point being is they were not guilty of anything. So I allegedly assisted them and ended up doing 12 and a half years.
12 and a half years. Now tell me what kind of education in this 12 and a half years you got in jail? Like, how has it changed you?
I learned Ebonics.
You learned Ebonics. That's your takeaway. Always a jokester. No.
Yeah. No, I was able to read, meditate. I read the whole Bible. I was able to do the things that I never would have been able to do. Overall, I look at it as a positive experience. And at the same time, I was able to realize that not all government employees are evil. A lot of people just there for the 8 hours, get the paycheck, go home, and you start realizing the rank and file are not the problem. It's the political appointees at the higher end that really just destroy any hope of rehabilitation, which is not what's going on. But as I always tell people, it's you have cops or COs, correctional officers, watching other people watch TV all day. That's what a lot of people do. They watch Maury. They just do nothing all day. I was most of my time was spent reading, writing, and working out and doing other. I consider it developmental stuff because I don't want to waste the time. Right now, for instance, being a carpenter, I'm working pretty often, and just like most people, I don't think most people have the time to read a book, which is really crazy when you stop to think about it. But how many people read a book every week or 2 weeks?
Or inform or enrich themselves in some way, spiritually.
Yeah, doom scrolling is probably the number one pastime, unfortunately.
Yeah. And then unfortunately you get these copy paste type personalities that come with it.
Yeah.
So it sucks. So you were a state rep. You could not tour the jail because of your previous history as a former felon.
That was what they told me in so many words. So I filed a motion on May 23rd, 2024, to suspend the House rules because it was beyond the point at which you could file bills. There's a certain filing period, but this was an important bill to me. And I made a motion to suspend the rules and introduced a late bill to allow members of the general court to visit any public institution. I had 148 people vote with me. Unfortunately, 216 went against, which is absurd that you have people that are supposed to be in the business of oversight saying no, they don't want oversight. But there's a lot of cheese balls in there. Anyway, 1 year later, new NH Journal headline, Hanks yanked from Department of Corrections as financial scrutiny continues. This is 1 year afterwards. That was May 19th, 2025. And then her second in command, the Assistant Department of Corrections Commissioner Raymond, resigns. that was July 25th, 2025. Now, I'm not going to claim to have caused that, but it is kind of interesting, the timing there. It's frustrating that I think a lot of people, and that's why I'm so concerned with the grand jury idea, which I hope we can get into a little more detail, is everyone knows about something funky going on. We all kind of have inside information from our relations and our circle of influence that we know, okay, something's weird here, but we can't put our finger on it exactly, but we still have an idea that there needs to be some oversight. But if you contact your state reps, they are generally useless. You try to contact the county attorney, good luck. There is no publicly available email address to actually contact them. So you go, oh, well, I'll contact the sheriff. That doesn't go anywhere, mostly because I don't think they fully realize the capabilities they have. And then you go, okay, well, I'll go to the county commissioners. And that's a dead end as well, because they claim that they don't have oversight over the sheriff or the county attorney. So then you go, well, what is the point? Where am I supposed to go? And I think that's the goal, is to get you demoralized to the point where you go, this is just the way it is. And it's not the way it is. And it won't be the way it is if I was to get in as sheriff, because I'm not willing to accept that. I think people, yeah.
Isn't this like a full circle moment for you though? I mean, it's sort of very Count of Monte Cristo in a way, where you go in as a prisoner and you're coming back as reemerging as possibly the sheriff.
Well, I'm still amazed that people trust me enough to vote me in as a state rep. And I think I did a fairly good job. There were some issues I brought to the forefront that were not being brought that later turned out to be true. Among them, the geoengineering. The feds now admit that that's real. And there's some other stuff. But yeah, it's hopefully I can turn this full circle, or at the very least, I want to make the grand jury an issue that the county attorney candidates and the sheriff candidates have to address.
It would be an interest. I mean, it's an interesting story if you think about it. Someone who's been incarcerated for 12 and a half years comes back and is running for sheriff. I mean, everybody loves an underdog, like an underdog story. And you, my friend, are definitely an underdog.
Oh, in all ways and shapes, yeah, especially in the sheriff's race. But last time I ran, so I was in State House 22 to 24. Then in 24, I ran for sheriff, and I got 31% in the primary, which, as I tell people, is pretty impressive. One out of every 3 people that walked into the polling booth said, yeah, I want the felon as my sheriff. And I think that just shows you, but it just shows you how frustrated people are.
What will you bring to the role, having been where you've been?
Well, I think my two key points. One is I don't have any allegiance to any of the official establishment entities, the Sheriff's Association, or I'm outside of the system, which is kind of beneficial in that I'm not answering to anybody. You know what I mean? I don't owe anybody favors within that community. The second thing would be, through this learning about the grand jury, my goal would be to simply fulfill the investigative requests of the grand jury, because they can go above the county attorney. If they say, we want to investigate this department, as I like to say, the big 3, corrupt politicians, bureaucrats, and corporations. Because corporations are not people. We can have that conversation too, but that's all BS. So if the county level grand juries were to go after these entities for corruption and related issues, I think you would see a sea change so fast, which is what happened in New York in the mid-1930s, which we were talking about off air earlier. And that it shook everything up. The grand jury said, yeah, we're not doing this. They went above the county attorney and county prosecutor, whatever you want to call him. And then they went right to the governor and got a special prosecutor and ended up taking down Lucky Luciano in a $12 million a year prostitution ring, which nowadays would be $300 million a year, which is nuts. And as I was saying earlier, I think it's just the Epstein thing all over again. I don't think it's ever changed. It's always been controlling the political class. And, and I think there's a lot of that going on now. But yeah.
Generational, and the faces change, but it's still the same thing happening time and time and time again.
Yeah. Well, these people are big. The people that are calling the shots right now, the powers that ought not be, as I like to call them, they're not going into this blind. They are controlling multiple levers at once. And I think in New Hampshire, we're kind of in that unique position where with 400 state representatives, it's simply impossible to control everything at that level. And I think that's how people like me Ellen, Ellen Reed, and other types of anti-establishment, or just, that we're not dancing to the same beat as the "I'm going to be in there for a bajillion years," and I don't care about that stuff. But I think that's what makes New Hampshire unique, and also the liberty-oriented culture, and that's why I'm hoping this time around I can pull it off.
I think you just might. I mean, it's a hell of a comeback story if you can actually pull this off. Someone who doesn't have any allegiances. You don't come from a dynasty family. You don't come from big money. You're just.
My father was a carpenter,
Mhm.
and then my mom was a public school teacher. So that's that's not. Yeah, my dad didn't do all that well, and he actually died when I was 8. So yeah, I'm definitely not from a dynastic family in any way, shape, or form.
No.
But at the same time, I don't think I come from, the dumpster divers either. So I'm hoping to kind of I think we just need more normal people in these positions, not the
people who've actually gone through real stuff that real people go through.
And also people that haven't spent their whole lives in government. That's not a real world.
Right.
The real world is if you don't do a job good, you get fired. I'm a carpenter. I work for myself. If I mess up somebody's house, deck, whatever, you're not going to get called back. Well, you're going to get called back to fix it, but you're not going to get more jobs. And there is not that requirement for success in the public sphere. Let's be honest. So many of these people, I mean, we could look at these schools. So many of these people do not do a good job, and they get rewarded for it, which is just absurd.
So you were working with Leah Cushman at one point, going back to the state prison reform. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes. So Leah Cushman, the state representative, she was looking into DCYF and the associated problems there. And this is from an article actually in the New Hampshire Union Leader by Kevin Landrigan. The title is Packard, who's the Speaker of the House, sacks DCYF special panel chair over oath mandate. So during the second meeting of the DCYF committee last Monday, Cushman announced all witnesses before the panel would have to swear an oath, citing a little-used state law that allows any committee or member to request someone speaking to attest to their truthfulness. Which, if you think about it, just let's stop for a second and look at this. If you have someone coming before a committee, which the goal of the committee is to get to the truth, wouldn't it make sense to have that person take an oath saying, yes, I'm going to tell the truth to you right now? And this is actually in the RSAs, our state laws, that allow this to happen. And as she wrote, the legislature is the grand inquest of the state with full power of investigation, which is true. Unfortunately, he didn't see it the same way, and he had her removed. I'm trying to find a good quote here. He wrote, well, two things. The New Hampshire House is a strong and sacred tradition of enabling free speech and open access to appear before our committees. Okay. Well, yeah, but at the same time, how does that change anything? We're saying you got to tell the truth. And then this is a better quote. There is no custom, usage, or precedent for administering an oath for testimony. But Title I, the state and its government, Chapter 14, RSA 1414, oaths of witnesses, any senator or representative, while acting as a member of a committee of the legislature, may administer an oath to any person who may be examined before such committee. So there is a custom. I mean, we're living in this Alice in Wonderland, and so seeing that in the State House, I go, this is a waste of time. This is just a waste of my time. I have better things to do, literally. I mean, I'd rather go build houses than to sit there and go through a circus that I could see through. Wizard of Oz kind of stuff. Once you look behind the curtain, okay, I mean, how much longer can you. So that was the whole situation.
Sherman Packard says he doesn't censor anybody, but yet Ellen Reed says F in the hallway, and she's been reprimanded and barred. It's just such bullshit.
Yeah, I have to say though, I do believe there should be a level of decorum. Excuse me. I don't want to get into the point where it's Jerry Springer, because the general court, the state legislature, it should hold a special position, let's say, where the truth A should reign, but B, you should treat people with respect, because if you really think about it, each rep represents 3,500 people. So even if you dislike that rep, which there are some that I dislike, and I think some have room temperature IQs, but at the same time, they really do. But anyway,
they really do. I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah. But at the same time, they are representing those 3,500 constituents who are not like them. Just
Hmm.
unfortunately, none of them wanted to run for that seat for whatever reason, probably because they get $100 a year. But that's what I'm saying. I do think there should be a level of, and let's be honest, Ellen kind of, she skirts on that line a little bit. So, but be that as it may, the fact that you cannot actually require people to tell the truth is it's just something I cannot
Yeah, what's the
understand.
point? What's the point? That's actually in the New Hampshire Constitution or
No, it's the RSA's.
RSA's. Okay,
So
I'll bring that up so our viewers can take a
yeah.
look at that.
But yeah, that was kind of my wake up moment when I said, okay, this is not going to work, and then I decided to run for sheriff. And unfortunately, last time I didn't really have a clear idea on
Hmm.
on what I was attempting to get across. It was a little bit jumbled, I should say.
Hmm.
And now with so getting back to the grand jury thing, I found a 1978 handbook at the state library. Oh, that's what we were talking about, and in it is talking about the explicit right duty of them to investigate. And then everything started. That was in early June. Everything started to make sense because now when I talk to people, hey, here's this manual. It said they can do this. The county attorney is not telling them this. The orientation video from 1989 or whenever it was made doesn't mention this at all. So obviously we have a problem. We need someone to bring this to their attention. And if the grand jurors know that they have a sheriff who is willing to assist in their investigations, it will give them the courage, I believe, to really push forward on investigations that matter.
Hmm.
Because as I said earlier, it's a dangerous job. Being a grand jury, think about what they're doing. If they really do their full job, they're going after some of the biggest entities in the state.
Hmm.
There's a lot of dirty stuff going on. Ghislaine Maxwell wasn't found in Bedford because it was just a random place. I mean, there's a
Bradford,
lot
yeah.
of, right? It was Bedford, I believe.
Bradford.
Oh, Bradford. I'm sorry. Okay. One of the B's. But yeah, I think there's a lot of deep seated funk here that needs to be kind of unearthed so we can just get back to not paying a bajillion dollars a year in property taxes. And then also these political, like you were saying earlier, the political dynasties, they got to go. There should not be people in there for 50, 60 years or whatever it is.
Hmm.
It's just not how it's supposed to be. So last year around October, I started going to the Merrimack County Courthouse and directly engaging with the grand jurors, giving them information. I didn't have the manual at that time that I found at the state library, obviously, but I had enough research that I came up with my own little grand juror notebook that I provided them. And the idea for this came because I created the New Hampshire Grand Jury Association. We actually have a meeting coming up Monday, August 31st, 5 to
So,
7 p.m. at the
so,
Northfield Town Hall.
so tell me about the grand jury. What was it?
The New Hampshire Grand Jury Association.
The Grand Jury Association. Tell me more
Yeah.
about it.
So right now it's a little bit limited. It's only a handful of people, but the idea came from the Association of Grand Jurors of New York County. So this was founded in 1912 by grand jurors seeking to preserve the independent investigative powers of the grand jury against encroachment by district attorneys and political machines.
That's awesome.
This is really interesting stuff. The association, now this is AI stuff, but this is it.
Mhm.
The association emerged in an era when the grand jury's traditional role as a watchdog of public affairs was diminishing. Its primary mission was to advocate for the grand jury's right to investigate official corruption and misconduct by public officials independently, issue presentments for their formal accusations without the direct sponsorship of a prosecutor,
Mhm.
and operate with greater autonomy from the district attorney's office, which often sought to control the grand jury's agenda, which is what's going on now, which is even worse in a sense. They're not even telling them they have the ability to investigate. There was a man by the name of Robert Appleton, became a member of that grand juror association, and
Mhm.
in 1935, he was the one who was a foreman of the grand jury at the time in New York that pushed to have the special prosecutor brought in, Thomas Dewey, who investigated Lucky Luciano and all that, the prostitution ring. And because he just wouldn't give up. So
Mhm.
he went above the prosecutor, went to the governor and said, we want a special prosecutor. And that's where I got this idea from, because he was the president of the Association of Grand Jurors of New York County from 1927 to 1935. And
Mhm.
to me, I think a lot of things that we're going through are cyclical. And it's kind of interesting how we're coming up on 100 years. And I think every so often you need to kind of flush out the corruption that's become so embedded that literally government does not work. It's not like a ha-ha thing, but it literally is not working to the point where I think a lot of people are getting to getting very frustrated, let's say. And it's a dangerous place to be at. And that's what I'm trying to do, is to let go some of that steam and show people, yes, there actually can be accountability of these other public officials who they just pretend like we don't even exist. And that, so anyway, yeah, we'll be doing that meeting on August 31st. And the goal is to, because Merrimack County, the grand jurors will be meeting next week for 3 days. They meet 3 days a month for 4 months. Mm-hmm. And at that meeting, like I did last time, I'll give them an invite to the meeting, the grand juror meeting. Mm-hmm. And the goal is to get real currently seated grand jurors to sit down with members of the public whom they serve and to find out what it is that needs to be investigated. Because even though their term is up at the end of August and a new grand jury will be seated in September, the fact is they can write a note, a letter, or whatever you want to call it, to the incoming grand jury and say, please look into X, Y, and Z. That's how it was traditionally done. One grand jury would then pass off to the next one. We've noticed there's some issues in this area. Go look into it. So and also they would keep the same foreman, which I think would be a good thing, because then you have somebody that's experienced. Because in the state house, a third of the house turns over every 2 years. So even in that situation, when you have, let's say, 66% of the people there have tenure, you still have so many new people that it takes a second to kind of get a feeling of what's going on. Mm-hmm. But if you had some people that were there for a period of time, it would provide that continuity to then really get in-depth investigations going, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and then you get them emotionally invested into the project, right?
Yeah, because currently they're getting paid $20 a day. And I think it's all intended to make them feel like, A, the job is a joke, but that B, you're a $20 employee. I mean, so you don't really take it. I just want to get out of here. And I get it. I mean, working for $20 a day is pretty rough, especially these days. So
yeah, that's slave wages. Okay, well, Jason Gerhard, thank you for joining me on the Gracie Gatto podcast.
All right, thank you.
All right, and we're out.